Welcome, focused learners, to this explainer. Did you know that the average urban worker spends literally hundreds of hours a year just staring at the bumper in front of them? It's kind of absurd, right? Thinking about spending an entire month of your year just stuck in traffic. Well, today we're taking a structured, analytical look at the systemic causes behind that massive urban commute burnout. And we'll be drawing directly from the brilliant insights of development and policy thinker Oluyomi Ola David, specifically looking at her work titled Hassles of Urban Work. If you've ever felt completely drained before you even step foot in the office, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention to the structural realities she uncovers. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going on a quick 5-part journey today, starting with the urban commute gridlock, then moving to the push to the suburbs, the toll on worker health, infrastructure, and global inequality, and finally, reimagining the inclusive workplace. Let's get right to it. Section 1, the urban commute gridlock. We absolutely have to start right at the source of the everyday pain experienced by millions navigating densely populated megacities. You know, for a typical low-income urban worker, the workday doesn't just start at a breezy 9 a.m. No way. It starts at 4 or maybe 5 in the morning. We're talking about waking up in the pitch dark just to plan and execute a grueling, multi-hour trip into a traffic-laden city center. These workers are simply trying to stay productive, right? They're just trying to be dutiful employees. But the sheer logistical hurdle of getting from your bed to your desk is an enormous battle all on its own. And this brings us right to the core observation from Oluyomi Ola David. She writes, if you live or work within a densely populated megacity, you can relate to regular rush hour gridlock or slowdown. I really love how she grounds her analysis in this deeply relatable, almost universal frustration, because she knows that before we can even begin to talk about macroeconomic policy, we have to acknowledge that shared human experience of sitting in that endless crawling line of traffic. So why exactly are we all stuck in that traffic? Well, that brings us to Section 2, Pushed to the Suburbs, where we'll unpack the housing dynamics driving this gridlock. And this brilliantly illustrates her core argument about spatial inequality. Look, on one side, you've got high-income earners who can easily retain their patronage of pricey city housing units right near their workplaces. But low- and middle-income earners, they're physically pushed out. Driven by exorbitant rental costs, they're practically forced to find affordable accommodation way out on the edges of cities, in the sprawling suburbs or in nearby towns. The geography of the city is literally splitting right down income lines. She points out that this spatial divide leads to the total exclusion of what we often call the bottom billion. Whenever public-aided, low-cost housing units are in limited supply within these urban areas, people simply can't pull the funds together for fairly priced living spaces. And the massive irony here? The very people who keep the city running are the ones totally excluded from actually living in it. Now, this exclusion isn't just some dry economic statistic. It has a profound human cost. So let's move to Section 3, the toll on worker health. So the crucial point here is how she links the macroeconomic housing issue directly to everyday employee well-being. It's a pretty brutal 3-step sequence. Step 1, workers are pushed to the suburbs. Step 2, because they work in the city center, they now have to combat long, exhausting hours of daily commuting just to earn a living. And Step 3, this daily battle leads directly to a decline in long-term employee health and productivity. She specifically highlights the very real, serious implications for employee stress, mental health risks, and occupational hazards. Make no mistake about it, the commute is actively degrading the workforce. So how does this all play out globally? Let's broaden our scope a bit in Section 4, Infrastructure and Global Inequality. Here we encounter a really powerful term she actually coined, the poverty of connective infrastructure. She defines this as the lack of high-speed, flyover, or underground rail systems that are suitable for efficient transportation. She notes that, yeah, while high living costs in city centers are definitely a global issue, this specific infrastructure deficit makes things incredibly worse for labor market participants in low to middle income developing nations. They are fundamentally more disadvantaged just because the physical systems to move them efficiently simply do not exist. Let's move to and see how this builds into our final segment, Section 5, Reimagining the Inclusive Workplace. We're pivoting now from the agitation of the problem to the actual actionable solutions she proposes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how radical and employer-driven these interventions actually are. She argues that firms really need to step up. This could mean providing on-site accommodation facilities, actively contributing to housing development, or even adopting nearby inns where employees can crowd rent during the work week to avoid that daily commute entirely.
And of course, really taking advantage of how the recent pandemic helped accelerate remote work practices, especially in developing economies. She places the onus squarely on the organization to relieve work stress.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth should organizations foot the bill for all this? Well, because, as she clearly explains, it yields total win-win outcomes. Firms that place a premium value on quality of life, on total well-being, and who actually understand the harsh dynamics of urban life, well, they'll see it reflected directly in their bottom line. It's simple, really. Better health equals better labor productivity. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly vital question from her research. How can we become proactive at rebuilding work environments for an inclusive future? Look, the infrastructure might be lacking right now, and the housing markets might be pushing us out. But the design of the work environment itself, that's something we can actually change today. I want you to look at your own industry and ask yourself how these insights can permanently reshape it for the better. Thank you so much for joining me for this Explainer, Focused Learners, and I challenge you to take these structural insights right into your workday tomorrow.